Okay, hi everyone. This is Mr. Giannechini, computing lead at Oakfield Prep School. I'm joined today by Peter Lillington, an EdTech expert from the EdDev Trust, who very kindly joined us earlier this week to help us celebrate and talk about Safer Internet Day for 2023. Spent some time with the children and staff just discussing issues related to safe internet use, and has very kindly agreed to answer some of the questions that you posed to us via our eSafety Padlet. Thanks to those who posted questions. We had a number of questions, and I've kind of distilled them down to three main areas, and we'll dive straight in, Peter, if that's all right with you.
Yes, so thanks for all your questions, and just to say, there are no easy solutions. This is, as you know, quite a complex and ever-changing area, but there are things we can all do, and parents, you're actually in a strong position to provide guidance and establish rules and make clear what's acceptable and what's not in your own families and in online behaviour. And alongside the annual, now 20 years old, Safer Internet Day, there are always resources for parents and carers there, materials and advice, but there are lots of other reputable and well-established organisations now that can provide advice and help. So turning to the questions, what was the first one?
So question one we had, an important one asked by a couple of parents, what parental control tools exist to help us as parents limit or monitor our children's online activity?
Yeah, and quite a few tools do exist for filtering and monitoring, and the challenge is that there are so many different platforms now in use and different types of devices, mobile devices, tablets, iPads, desktop, laptops, games platforms, and so on, and a range of services, but all of them these days do provide advice for families, and that includes, with some of them, very specific services that they can offer, and broadband providers and mobile networks also have some family-friendly services. So if you've not come across it before, the Internet Matters website is really helpful because it dives down right into the specifics of different platforms, different devices, and is quite informative there. So I'm going to pass the buck and suggest you look for some specific advice that's relevant to the platforms that you're using.
Great.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's not like a magic switch or magic silver bullet. So although it's great to have those technical solutions, if you like, in place, it's also really important to realize that with the internet changing all the time and incredible amounts of new stuff being put online on a constant basis, no tool can be 100% effective at the limiting or the monitoring of whatever you're doing. So also in a child, as often happens with children, that they're in an environment outside their own home, they're not at school, maybe they're temporarily using an adult or a teenager's mobile device. These safeguards may well not be in place in that particular context. So also establishing some general principles for behaviour and what to do, that may be helpful as well. And it sounds a bit trite to say it, but the most powerful tool that you've got at your disposal is that one which families have always had, and that's listening carefully, the power of listening carefully and talking with your child about what they like and what they want to do online, what their friends are doing or say they're doing, what they're worried about, who can help them. And actually that is the theme for this year's
very on message
Internet Day. Yeah, so making time to talk. So it's not so much about the tech in all this online safety stuff, although clearly that's there as the tool and the vehicle. It's about human behaviour and understanding consequences, and you as parents can see the bigger picture. And the children might be very good with using the tech, but you've got that kind of understanding of a bigger picture. And ChildNet International is one of the websites. ChildNet, they're part of the UK Safer Internet Centre, and an organisation that's been around quite a while called Parent Zone. They have really helpful tips on how to have kind of stress-free, relaxed conversations and before something goes wrong, but also how to seek help if something does go wrong or to report. BBC Own It website aimed at children. They could be great short video clips for kind of watching and talking with the children about and seeing the way things are presented in children's TV. ChildNet also have some materials aimed at much younger children, like DigiDuck and Smarty the Penguin, and I think those are on the Padlet, Paul, is that right? Mm-hmm. Links to those, and so sitting with your child, doing things together online when you get the chance from time to time, and just talking casually about what you're doing and what you yourself are careful about if you use the internet or your mobile phone or any other devices. That's good. Okay, of course the intention would always be not to worry or scare the child. And in terms of selecting appropriate apps, which I suggest comes into the picture, apps and games, an organisation called Common Sense Media has got kind of vast amounts of information and reviews of apps, and it's a well-established, reputable site for families and parents. Right. Okay, I've packed a lot into that. I hope some of that was helpful.
I think the key messages are, there are some technical controls around, linking accounts that you can do. Yeah. Just general monitoring of whatever devices the children are using. But number one, really important, those conversations and having those conversations with children, modeling good behaviour yourself online, showing them what to do, what to expect, and talking to them about what's going on online for them. Great. Question 2, kind of building on from that, how do we, as kind of adults, a little bit out of it, keep up with the ever-changing online landscape?
That's again a really challenging thing to answer, because well, it's very tricky, isn't it? And it's just knowing enough, really, and well, again, talking with your child, what's going on, what's the latest you've heard, or what's everyone saying you should be doing. That's one way, but again, organizations like Parent Zone, Common Sense Media, they do aim to keep up to date with the advice that they provide, and are pretty good, and often there are newsletters or blogs that you can subscribe to. And another partner in the UK Safer Internet Centre, that's the Southwest Grid for Learning, so British-based organisation. They have a section for parents as well, and whenever there's something new has come out that clearly parents and families and schools have a concern about, they often do an update on their website. And NSPCC, ChildNet, I've mentioned, Internet Matters, they also review their resources on a regular basis.
Great. So I think there are quite a few places out there that keep track of these things kind of for us, do a bit of that legwork for us, so we can keep on top of that.
And the good thing is that these days they're much more joined up and kind of cross-reference each other and so on, rather than operating independently
in silos. Great. Again, then the final question, could speak about this for quite a while, I imagine. But what is currently the greatest risk to children's online safety, and how do these risks evolve as they get older?
It's again quite a challenging one, and that's a very serious one, obviously, and a lot depends on the context. But I guess certain things to mention, definitely in terms of severity of impact and consequences, the risk of grooming or coercion for a child or young person via a mobile device should be mentioned. And so in that context, it's worth checking out the CEOP, that's CEOP, Think You Know website, which has a section for parents and carers, and also for a range of other audiences, including children and young people. There have been cases where parents have been oblivious to what's been happening in another part of a home, where they've assumed the child is safe on their own device, but yeah, bad things have been going on. And there also have been some very sad cases in the media recently involving social media and exposure to harmful content and pressures there. So those are kind of very specific things to mention. And again, in this context, it's really because there's so much usage and pressure on everyone really to be on social media these days, I guess. But they're not designed for children's use and come with a whole set of risks. Yet we know research shows that there's very widespread use amongst children, and that's often contravening the service's own terms and conditions. And if you do report it, then they'll shut the account down eventually. But it's very easy for a child to sign up or bypass checks and so on. And knowing who and what to trust and how to make cross checks and keep things in proportion is actually pretty difficult for us as adults as well, and not to fall victim to scams or take something at face value which actually means the opposite, or some that sort of example. So yeah, it's pretty tricky. And maybe it's worth mentioning also that this week of Safer Internet Day, it's also Child Mental Health Week. And I guess going back to the question, as children become older and more independent and less under parental supervision, risks around some of these areas may increase. So I guess one of the messages would be, yeah, if you can lay the foundations of understanding and making good choices early on, that's really important. And coming back to not wanting to scare younger children, but I think having these conversations right from the earliest age in an appropriate way is really helpful. Not when something has gone wrong, but kind of preemptive. And I know on the slide you've got, Paul, you've got the 4 C's, which is kind of a manageable way to think about all the different risks and group them together in categories. So we've got the content and contact and conduct, and then commercial. And I know you've got some more details there on the slide, and some of the ChildNet resources kind of refer to those in a bit more depth as well. And
I think as children get older, maybe that commerce one starts to come into play a bit, as they have their own bank accounts. They might start using their own accounts linked to certain things. They become a bit more vulnerable to those commercial risks. But certainly, around content, when they're younger, just making sure that what they're seeing is appropriate, age appropriate. That contact, so making sure that anyone they are engaging with, for whatever reason, they know them, and then it's an appropriate contact. And the conduct, instilling in them early on, all our children, that there are ways to behave, and they're no different online than they are offline. And I know we talk to the children in school about the kind of grandma test. Would you say this to your grandma, or would you say this to someone when you were stood next to your grandma? And if you wouldn't, then the same principle applies online.
And again, with social media and so on, there's this misleading terminology of friends or contacts or whatever, and if children are having regular contact in a game or something like that with someone's username or whatever it is, or nickname, it can become familiar, but actually it's important to realize they may not actually know who that person really is behind the name. So understanding and unpicking some of the things there, and also sadly understanding that although it seems like everything online is for free, there are some kind of pressures behind it.
There's always a cost.
And privacy and all that data that organisations want to collect about what children do. They're the consumers of tomorrow, I guess. So a big area, and a complex one, but there are definitely things you can do to help.
Well, that's great, Peter. Thank you for going through those 3 questions in a bit of detail. I mean, let's not leave it too doom and gloomy. Are there any positive messages that you might want to
definitely
share?
Yes. So the research still shows that overwhelmingly, despite what we might sometimes hear on the media, most children most of the time are having a fantastic positive experience, and you know that the materials for Safer Internet Day always accentuate the positive, and that children can make good choices for themselves, and the benefits really do outweigh the risks and so on. So it's important, like you say, to keep all these things in proportion. But nevertheless, as parents, we all want to do what we can as well.
Yeah, of course. And if you have any questions or concerns, anyone watching this about anything, and you're not sure where to go, please feel free to contact the school. My details are on there. I'm the computing lead and leading on elements around e-safety with Miss Hanson, the Senko. So please feel free to contact us if you've got any concerns or questions. Thanks so much for your time, Peter.
Well, thanks for inviting me to be involved. It's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.